I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation, the death of Anna Kepner, an 18-year-old killed while on board a cruise ship with her blended family. Here's the story. Anna Kepner, an 18-year-old high school senior from Titusville, Florida, slipped away on what was supposed to be a joyful family cruise aboard the Carnival Horizon. Full of life, dreams of joining the U.S. Navy, and a future she'd worked so hard for, Anna seemed unstoppable. But on November 7th, tragedy struck. Her body discovered concealed under her bed, wrapped in a blanket and covered with life vests. The FBI has launched a full investigation, scouring the ship's surveillance videos, swipe card logs, and interviewing family members, including her own 16-year-old stepbrother, who was under suspicion according to his own mother. As the family and community grieves, Anna's story has become a haunting riddle. What happened in that cabin? Now, before you can really understand what may have happened in that cabin, I think it's important to understand some of what was going on in Anna Kepner's life. And as I mentioned, she's part of this blended family. She had a boyfriend, and I guess it's sort of common among young people these days because of the technology. If you have a boyfriend, you're in high school, or a girlfriend, you're in high school, you can talk to each other on FaceTime. And apparently one night, there was a FaceTime call between Anna Kepner and her boyfriend Joshua. And Anna may have fallen asleep in her bed, but the FaceTime was still on, so he could see what was going on. Josh could see what was happening in Anna's room. And in that moment, Josh sees something that is extremely alarming. He was asked about it when he was outside the celebration of life for Anna. A bunch of folks from the media got around and interviewed him, and he talked about what he saw, what he witnessed. And it involves Anna and her 16-year-old stepbrother. Let's take a listen to that interview.
From what you know, what do you think happened in the room?
I think that he walked in there and basically we walked in there and tried to get on top of her and tried to do a sexual thing with her, but he got caught by me in the process of it.
I think you hurt her for that.
Yeah. And she got scared of it and wanted to go sleep over with friends and whenever she could at mine, but she never could because her stepmom was very destroying of it. And I got that, but I was like, her stepbrother is trying to go on top of her in the middle of the night, you know, and they didn't believe me.
So you think this could have been prevented?
Yes, ma'am.
What type of person was she?
She was a great woman, you know. I met her at school.
And the circumstances behind her death, you find them to be suspicious? And if so, tell me why.
It was suspicious because I knew that the brother did it, and yeah.
How do you know that?
Because of the past things that happened with him, like I was saying.
Which were wrong?
About the FaceTime and stuff.
What's the FaceTime?
Whenever I was on FaceTime with her, and when I was on FaceTime with her, and she was laying down, and the brother tried to go on top of her, and
you saw that?
Yeah. And then
how did she react to that?
I was like, "What the hell are you doing in the room?" You know. Then he got scared and like ran away, and I heard his footsteps like running through the house, you know, because he got caught.
So when you learned of her passing, you know, what was your reaction?
I ran away. He ran away. It was kind of crazy.
And when you learned that she passed away, how did you feel?
I felt very sad, you know, because that was my first love. She was the best that ever happened to me. And I'd even walked her to work to see her, you know, for like 5-10 minutes.
Did you talk with her before this?
Like 3 weeks before it, yes ma'am. I was actually supposed to go on the cruise that she went on, but we broke up before that.
When did you split?
We split up like 6 months ago.
6 months.
And everyone said she's just a bright light. So many people wearing bright colors today. How would you describe the kind of person she was?
She was a great person. She definitely knew how to throw on her outfit. She was great, you know. She knew how to put on colors. It wasn't like a basic outfit.
And this is your mom?
Yes, ma'am.
She's okay with you talking to us?
Yeah, but we need to go.
Okay. Just wanted...
Okay.
What should happen next?
Thank you.
Thank you.
What do you think should happen?
I think that he should get thrown in jail for as long as possible. And yeah.
And when did you move into the house?
I have no idea.
Like a year or two?
Maybe like a year ago. I think so. I don't.
You'd like to see justice for
Yeah, I'd
your
like
first
to
love.
see a lot of justice. Yes,
Has she ever complained about his behavior before?
yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
What did she complain about?
She complained about him being uncomfortable, or her being uncomfortable around him, because of the fact that he tried to go on top of her in the bed, and because of that, she tried to go and stay the night at her friend's house and to dodge the staying the night at her house.
She
That
ever,
happened more than once.
Yes.
did she ever bring that up with
How many
her?
times did that happen?
It happened one time, around like 3 a.m. that night.
That time when you were on the FaceTime call with her,
Yes, sir.
3 a.m.
Yes, sir.
Did she ever report that to her father?
No, I have not. I have reported it to the FBI.
This is a major development in all of this, in trying to understand what's going on in Anna Kepner's world, being a part of this blended family. And that brings us to the first question in our investigation tonight. How alarming is this behavior? It's her stepbrother, not half-brother, stepbrother. Blended family coming together, and her 16-year-old stepbrother, 3 a.m., allegedly jumping into her bed. She's feeling uncomfortable. Here to help answer this question, psychiatrist, forensic specialist, medical health expert, Dr. Yalda Safai, and criminologist and investigative profiler, Dr. Casey Jordan. She's also the host of the Criminal Appeal podcast. Great to have you both here. All right, Dr. Safai, I'll begin with you from your perspective. How alarming is this behavior that was just described by Anna's former boyfriend?
It's both an alarming and isn't. First, it's alarming because they're family and they're not supposed to act that way around each other. And if this was a non-consensual type thing, obviously this is very alarming. At the same time, is having a sexual relationship with your stepbrother, who's not your blood relative, who you likely didn't grow up with, unethical? I don't know. The lines are a little bit blurred here. I think the most important thing here is whether this was a consensual thing, if they had a prior relationship or not. Because if it was non-consensual, if this person was giving their stepsister unwanted advances, obviously this is very concerning. But I think, you know, just having a purely sexual relationship with your stepbrother when you're young, you know, hormones are running wild, it could happen, right? And technically it's not incest, it's not illegal because you're not blood relatives. But I think the most important thing here is whether this was something consensual or not.
Yeah. I believe at 3 a.m., I believe she was sleeping at the time. I believe that's part of it. Josh did describe it that Anna had a response that she was not comfortable and she was sleeping at other people's homes to try to avoid all of this. Dr. Casey Jordan, from your perspective, how alarming is this behavior?
I would say it's as alarming as a 3-alarm fire. I mean, this is incredibly alarming to me. I don't even want to entertain the idea that it was potentially consensual relationship because, as her boyfriend pointed out, she was asleep. You can't consent when you are asleep. And she had told her boyfriend, I mean, his testimony is pure gold, if you ask me, because he was on FaceTime and witnessed it. It's not just secondhand information. He saw the stepbrother on FaceTime screen on top of his girlfriend and yelled at him through the phone, and the stepbrother ran away. He could hear the footsteps going through the house. So the fact that she was divulging to other people her boyfriend in particular, that she was uncomfortable around her stepbrother and avoiding him by trying to have sleepovers at somebody else's house, that to me is just a huge red flag. He was coming on to her. His attraction for her was sexual in nature. And even though there didn't appear to be any sexual activity involved in her death, it doesn't mean that there wasn't a sexual motivation in whoever killed her. And if it's the stepbrother, it seems to be part of a pattern. Very possible that she started screaming, kicking, resisting, and that arm went over her throat to keep her quiet. Maybe the intent wasn't to kill her, but now she's dead and he's the #1 suspect.
Dr. Safai, I want to play for you something from the attorney for the stepmom, for the 16-year-old's mother, talking about what happened to the 16-year-old after they left the ship.
Mom, immediately after the incident, he was hospitalized, and then when released from the hospital, Mom and Dad participated too. They signed a stipulation basically allowing him to live with Mom's relative, and they're getting counseling and so forth for him.
Dr. Safai, what are your thoughts about what they would have learned or what the discussion would be like after whatever happened on the ship happened and he's going to the hospital and being evaluated?
I mean, we don't really know why he was hospitalized, right? It could be a wide variety of reasons. I mean, I think from my understanding of the case, it was more of a psychological type hospitalization, but that could be because of a wide variety of reasons. He could have just been, traumatized from the death of the sister. So I try not to jump to conclusions and say, oh, he was feeling so guilty, that's why he was hospitalized, and, things like that. So we just don't know right now exactly why he was hospitalized and what happened and the conditions of that. So I try not to jump to conclusions, but once we get a little bit more clarity why he had to be hospitalized, I think we can draw better conclusions here.
Absolutely. Dr. Casey Jordan, your thoughts about the removal from the house. So, no one's been arrested, no one's been charged with anything. The 16-year-old in this custody hearing, there's a discussion, and he's removed from the house, and they're saying for the protection of the other minors that are still living in that household. Does that cause alarm?
Yeah, well, it underlines the fact that he is their #1 and perhaps only suspect in the death of his stepsister. And we know that room that he was sharing, there were 3 siblings and step-siblings in that cabin on the Carnival cruise line, including our victim, 18 years old, her stepbrother, 16 years old, the #1 suspect, and a younger sibling. And I don't know the details of how old that sibling is or what their gender is. But clearly, if you think that you have a teenager in your house who's capable of homicide of his stepsister, another family member within that house, somebody who has homicidal tendencies, perhaps, even if it isn't proved that he's responsible for her death, you must protect the other children in the house. And I would be very curious to know what is the nature of the custody dispute between the suspect's parents. That said, let's remember he is innocent until proven guilty. They're going to be looking at every single angle. They're going to be looking at cameras. They're going to be looking at key card swipes. Did the cabin have a balcony that somebody could have, an intruder could have come in through the balcony? They're not going to rule out anything else. But right now, given that she was found in the room that she shared with her stepbrother, stuffed under the bed, wrapped in a blanket, covered with life jackets, they're going to be looking at the person she shared the cabin with. And if he's clearly mentally or emotionally disturbed, it's good that he went to the hospital, and we're hoping he gets the care he needs. But we still need answers as to exactly what happened.
Dr. Casey Jordan, Dr. Yala Safai, great to have you both with us tonight. Thank you so much. Coming up next, what does the timeline reveal?
The older child, who's approximately 16 years of age, is a suspect in the death of the stepchild, an 18-year-old daughter that was in the same room.
You have to punish him, you have to kill him for a few $100?
You don't touch fire and expect not to get burned. My goal is to embarrass you. My goal is to make you suffer. My goal is for pain. Make sure that you remember me for the rest of your life.
You weren't feeling any sympathy.
If I'm being honest now.
You kill a man for acting like a junkie when you're the one turned him into a junkie.
Interview with a Killer season finale, Saturday night at 8 Eastern and Pacific, only on Court TV.
There's apparently an FBI investigation ongoing that the mother took the two younger children on a cruise, and that the older child, who's approximately 16 years of age, is a suspect in the death of the stepchild, an 18-year-old daughter that was in the same room.
So a lot of information coming from different places, right? You've got Anna's former boyfriend who's speaking out. You've got this custody battle that the stepmother is involved with her ex, which involves the children, her 16-year-old son. So we're learning a lot from that. We're also learning from sources and other reporting out there like the Daily Mail. And we're able to put together a bit of a timeline here. Let's take a look at it. November 6th, during dinner, Anna tells her family she's feeling ill and goes back to her cabin. Anna's 14-year-old brother and 16-year-old stepbrother, who were also staying in the same cabin, returned to the room a little bit later on. Anna's 14-year-old brother changes his clothes, leaves the cabin to take pictures of the cruise ship. So that would leave the 16-year-old and Anna together in that cabin. The 14-year-old returns and notices that Anna isn't in bed. He presumes that she's staying up late with the grown-ups. We move on to the next day, November 7th. 14-year-old and 16-year-old boys head to breakfast with the rest of the family. Anna doesn't join them for breakfast. The family realizes she is missing. Anna's father, Christopher Kepner, begins searching the horizon, which is the name of the ship that they're on. A medical emergency is then announced over the PA system, and Christopher goes to Anna's cabin where the cleaning crew had just discovered her body crammed under her bed. So that's the timing based upon the reporting from Daily Mail and some of the other information we can put in there, and it brings us to the next question in our investigation. What does the timeline reveal? Right? There's going to be lots of evidence. Anytime we're trying to figure out what happened, I know we like to do it, and law enforcement does it as well, puts together these timelines to try to understand who was where, when, who had opportunity. Here to help with our investigation, retired FBI Special Agent Kenneth Gray. Remember, this is an FBI investigation taking place. He's also professor of practice at the University of New Haven, and criminal defense attorney, former district attorney Matthew Mangino is with us. All right, Kenneth, I'll begin with you. As an investigator, what does this timeline reveal to you? What questions does it lead to next?
Yeah, the timeline here, very interesting in that we have Anna going into her cabin and then not being seen again that evening. It also shows us that the 14-year-old went to the cabin with the 16-year-old and left. So we've got the stepbrother, 16-year-old, in the cabin with the victim here, Anna. And then that it reduces the number of suspects down to one in this case. This ship is covered with cameras. And because of the cameras, it should help define a pool of suspects. We don't know the results of that right now from the investigation, but that is certainly something that I'm sure the FBI is looking at. The crime scene itself is limited potentially to just the cabin. They were all in there, so fingerprints is not going to help us out in this case. So instead, it would have to be other forensic evidence to help establish what happened to Anna.
Matthew Mangino, as a former prosecutor, looking at all of this, it seems to me the crucial witness, if in fact the 16-year-old is the suspect, the crucial witness in all this may be the 14-year-old.
Well, right, Vinny, and I've read some news reports. Again, this is not in investigative information, and I believe it came again from the boyfriend who we heard earlier, that the 14-year-old says that he heard an argument outside of the cabin between the victim and the 16-year-old stepbrother. So I think that it was even characterized as hearing some things being thrown around. So that adds to the the interest in the 16-year-old, certainly. And there are cameras, there are ways of going and see who went into the room and who left the room with the electronic key fobs that are used on these cabins. So there's going to be a wealth of information with all the tapes and everything to determine, when she went into the room, who went into the room, who left the room. And I think that's going to be well documented. The other thing here that surprises me a bit is that, she's an 18-year-old girl. She doesn't feel well. She goes back to her cabin. No one checks on her. No one goes in to see, hey, you feeling better? What's going on? No, they don't realize she's missing until breakfast the following morning. And so I'd be interested in knowing, what was going on in the meantime.
I never thought of it that way. That's true. If your child leaves because she's feeling ill, do you check before you go to bed? Hey, are you okay? Do you check in the morning? I guess they did sort of check in the morning because they're at breakfast, but it took some time to figure out what was going on. But no text messages like, hey, how you feeling? Like, you can't go 10 minutes in my house without someone texting one another when we're in the same house. Kenneth, let me ask you this. If in fact there is some sort of confrontation that is taking, a physical confrontation like was potentially described here by the 14-year-old, what sort of evidence are you looking for inside that room?
So again, autopsy, which we are not privy to, may give us other indicators about what to look for in this case. But I'm sure that in the process of doing a crime scene investigation, if there was blood inside the cabin, that would have been collected. Saliva, if it was inside the cabin, that would have been collected. Because all three were inside this was their cabin, there's going to be fingerprints everywhere that belonging to the three. So fingerprints themselves will not be very helpful. But it may have been a strangulation with his hands, or it may have been with something else that he used to strangle her with. So perhaps that item would be inside the cabin also. I think we need to see the result of the crime scene investigation to be able to see the value and what it proves, what they found.
Big thanks, Kenneth Gray, Matthew Mangino. We'll see you again really soon. Still to come, what does Anna's cause of death reveal? I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the death of Anna Kepner, a story that is taking on a life of its own as we learn more about Anna's blended family and the role it played in her death. Here's the story. Bright, bubbly, and full of dreams, that's how Anna Kepner's family remembers her. Before she graduated high school, she carved out a life of ambition, cheerleading, community service, and plans to join the military. But aboard a 6-day Caribbean cruise with her blended family, something went terribly wrong. FBI agents boarded the Carnival Horizon when it docked in Miami, and her body was found hidden under her cabin bed. Court filings now reveal a shocking development. A minor family member, her 16-year-old stepbrother, is being investigated by the FBI. The investigation is shrouded in secrecy, yet the whispers are growing louder. Was this a tragic accident or something far more sinister inside a family's own walls? And the whispers are getting louder, and some of the reporting is now digging into this using sources inside the investigation, giving us more and more information. And this is some of the latest coming from ABC News, who says, Anna Kepner, a teenager who was found dead on a Carnival Horizon cruise ship this month, died by asphyxiation resulting from a bar hold, an arm across the neck, a source briefed on the investigation told ABC News. Investigators also found 2 bruises on the side of her neck, the source said. According to the source, the preliminary information indicates there were no signs of sexual assault, and there did not appear to be drugs or alcohol in Kepner's system. Autopsy and toxicology reports that could confirm those details have not been completed. Okay, this brings us to the next question in our investigation, an important one. What does Anna's cause of death reveal, if in fact this is the cause of death, asphyxiation, an arm bar across the neck? What does that tell us? Here to help answer that question is author and clinical forensic neuropsychologist Dr. Judy Ho and forensic death investigator Joseph Scott Morgan. He's also the host of the very popular podcast Body Bags with Joseph Scott Morgan. All right, Joseph Scott Morgan, let me start with you on this. Give us your interpretation, the picture it paints. What is this revealing to you tonight?
Thanks for having me, Ben. Okay, so when we're talking about an arm bar, this is something, by the way, that is prohibited from, police cannot utilize this any longer. This is something that used to be used years and years ago. So when you think about this section of your arm being utilized or weaponized at that point in time, there's 2 ways it can be applied. Either from the rear, okay, so you have someone that attacks from the rear, and the actual forearm is used to compress all of the organs of the neck, all these structures in here. We're talking about the trachea, the strap muscles that run through here. And then it can be applied also if you're face to face with the subject, where you take your arm and force it down across the anterior aspect of the neck. Either way, this is a very violent, intimate type of event. It's not surprising, to me at least, that there were, in fact, bruises that were adjacent to her as well.
Dr. Judy Ho, these are siblings, stepbrother, stepsister. They didn't grow up together. Anna's father had 2 prior marriages. This is the 3rd marriage. About a year or so, maybe, the parents have been together. This family's been blended. What does this cause of death, if true, tell you about what's happening between these step-siblings?
Well, there's been some reports, Vinnie, that this stepbrother was obsessed with her in unhealthy ways. Anna's ex had talked about the fact that she was afraid to tell her family or other people about what her stepbrother was actually doing and how much he was scaring her or creeping her out, because he always carried a knife on him, allegedly. And that even when he tried to warn the family, this is the ex of Anna, that the family just really didn't believe him. And obviously, we always hope for the best when there's a blended family situation. That's very common to have a blended family nowadays. It's not the first family that's ever gone through this, nor will it be the last. However, that's always a challenging time for the most part, because this is a blended family coming together. People have never lived together. People might have feelings about their biological parents not being together. I feel like in general, parents should be on high alert for any warning signs that maybe people aren't getting along or that it could potentially get more serious. And if these allegations are true, that the stepbrother was obsessed with her, that she was essentially turning him down, hey, we're not going to do that. I'm not interested in you. I don't want to date you. You can see why it could potentially lead to something like this, especially in the heat of the moment.
Something else, Joseph Scott Morgan, I want to show you is from the Daily Mail. 2 sources who spoke with the Daily Mail under condition of anonymity say the pretty youngster, that's Anna, was found wrapped in a blanket, covered over with life jackets, and stuffed under a bed. What are your thoughts about that part of the story?
These are items of convenience that are within reach to facilitate these coverings. And interestingly enough, the Horizon, unlike other ships in the fleet of Carnival, the Horizon actually has life vest inside of the room. Other vessels that they have stations outside. So if you have an event at sea and they say you have to go to this specific area to be provided a life vest, that's not the case with the Horizon. There are actually life vests in the cabin itself that you have access to. Again, an item of convenience. And one more thing, Vin, we talked about the injuries on the neck. I think that it's very important. Anna her remains could offer up some other answers as well, because in these kind of very close quarter, intimate events like this, we want to look at her fingernails. We want to be able to see if there's any debris beneath these nails that we could do nail scrapings on. We've heard about this for years and years, right? There could be other biological elements in here, particularly skin, blood, these sorts of things. And also we would do nail trimmings, and these will be examined very, very carefully. I know that there's no sign, according to them, at least at this point, of some kind of sexual event. However, she's fighting for her life. Would she have had an awareness of this? I'm also going to be very, very interested in her toxicology, Vin. I want to know if she had anything on board, whether it's alcohol or any other kind of substance, because I want to know if she's been plied with anything.
That's a great point, because she did leave the dinner saying I wasn't feeling well, and we're wondering why she wasn't feeling well.
Her stomach was upset. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Dr. Judy Ho, the other part of the story, there's a third child involved here, a 14-year-old, which is her brother, and he may be a crucial witness in all of this. What are your thoughts about how he can handle this situation the best?
Well, it's so tough. He's in the middle of it. He might be the only closest witness. At least he heard something from the room, heard yells and screaming and some kind of unrest coming from the room that he was sharing with his 2 siblings, one biological sibling, the other the stepbrother. And I think as a 14-year-old, that's really difficult. He has a crucial role, but at the same time, he also needs to be protected. That's very traumatizing for him to realize that he heard those yells and screams, and that could have been essentially just minutes before his sister passed. So I think that he's going to need the support of trusted family members in this case. Maybe some can't be trusted at this moment in time. He may also even need some kind of crisis intervention from a mental health professional. And if they need him on the stand, they need to just be judicious with it. Get him to tell the story as quickly as possible. Don't belabor the point. Get him off the stand and get him the support that he needs to heal from this.
All right. Dr. Judy Ho is going to stay with us. Joseph Scott Morgan, thank you so much. We always appreciate your insight. Coming up next, why would the parents put the step-siblings together in a cabin?
The teenagers were given their own room in which to stay.
Sunday nights on Court TV. Join us for a night of food, friends, and our favorite legal dramas. It's Order in the Court, and this week...
I'm Dr. Jason Bull. I study a jury's behavioral patterns. Not guilty, thank you. The verdict you get depends on me. You don't get a name like Bull because you give up before the game is over.
We're binge-watching Bull, Sunday starting at 6, 5 Central on Court TV.
Well, Your Honor, it's our understanding that because the cruise was in international waters, that the young child, not the 9-year-old, but the 16-year-old was allowed to drink. The teenagers were given their own room in which to stay. Just a lot of circumstances that showed that the mother in this case was not exercising appropriate supervision over this child or the other child involved.
That's again from the custody hearing, and what's important there is describing the setup on the ship. So there was a 9-year-old, but the 9-year-old's not in that room. The teenagers are in that room. Take a look at this from the Daily Mail. Anna was sharing the cabin with her 14-year-old brother and 16-year-old stepbrother. The two boys were sleeping in bunk beds, and Anna was in her own bed, according to a well-placed source. Now, Inside Edition spoke to the father of Anna Kepner's former boyfriend, who said Anna's stepbrother exhibited some disturbing behavior, and the parents may have known about it.
He saw her stepbrother come in the room when she was sleeping and get on top of her. He says, Dad, I tried to tell the parents that this was happening, and they didn't want to believe me. He's like infatuated, attracted to her like crazy. He's always wanted to date her. She was scared of him because he always carried around a big knife.
Shocking. All this is shocking, if true, obviously. And it brings us to the next question in our investigation. Why would the parents put the step-siblings together in a cabin? 16-year-old boy, 18-year-old girl, and a 14-year-old boy. Still here helping us with our investigation, author and clinical forensic neuropsychologist, Dr. Judy Ho. And also joining us, Margaret McLean, former prosecutor and host of the podcast, It's a Crime with Margaret McLean. All right, Dr. Judy Ho, I'll begin with you. What do you think the thought process was here from mom and dad, or stepdad and mom, or dad and stepmom, however you want to refer to them?
Vinny, I think it's convenience and cost, because cruises, they are expensive. They charge by the room. And so it's easier to put all of the children, at least the more grown children, in this case, the teenagers, in one room, than to, for example, get Anna her own room and then have the stepbrothers be in another room. That would be double the cost, essentially. So I think that finance must have been a factor here. Possibly also convenience. Okay, we got one extra room. We got one room for us and the younger child, and we've got another room for the older children. There's 2 rooms. Easy to keep track of people. But as I was mentioning in the last segment, Vinny, blended families, especially towards the beginning, and this has only been about a year or so that this family has been blended, this is a really tough transition point for many, many children and teens. And it's a time to really be more vigilant and to try to foster as much of family togetherness and connection as possible. Make sure that you have direct communication with everyone involved. And this is just a recipe for disaster, obviously. Hindsight is 20/20, but it clearly was a recipe for disaster to put 3 of them in the same room, where the stepbrother had direct access to Anna when she's sleeping, when she's going to the restroom. There's usually only one restroom in one cruise stateroom. So there's a lot of logistics here that did not make sense.
Yeah, Margaret, I want to show you this. The I Like Cruise Ships YouTube channel did a video tour of one of the 3 passenger cabins aboard the Carnival Horizon. This particular room on the ship had a set of bunk beds as well as a single twin bed. Let's take a look at what we can see here.
Welcome to the Carnival Horizon. We're going to have a look at one of the Family Harbor cabins. This is 2464. Now this is kind of obviously at the back of deck 2, which is the Family Harbor area. And you'll see all the cabins sort of running not too far from the back of the ship. So this is kind of cool because one of the actual Pullman beds is already in place. I'm just going to get the ladder nice and straight there. So you can actually see that top bunk already prepared. So this is actually set up as a 3-person room.
All right, Margaret, I mean, tight quarters, obviously. They're on a ship. You know, what do you think's going on here? Were they just oblivious to the potential of a 16-year-old boy and an 18-year-old girl, and what possibly could potentially happen here?
Yeah, Vinny, I'm the mom of 3 kids, okay? And I've also been on cruise ships like that. I think as a mother, there should have been red flags. And I listened to the previous segment where, you know, there were issues with the stepbrother being obsessed with Anna. And as a mother, you should have like warning signs or red flags going on. And I think it was very reckless of that mom to put them, all three of them, in the tight room like that. And especially if he carried a knife. So I'm very interested to see what happens. And Vinnie, I'm curious as to why, with all this stuff coming out and the sources that we've been hearing about, why hasn't the FBI made an arrest yet? I think that's really interesting too.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
I guess it might be an autopsy situation. I think that's probably the key to them getting the final results from the medical examiner. Dr. Judy Ho, what are your thoughts here? What would prevent, now Anna was a smart young woman. She was getting ready, she was going to join the military, straight A student, popular, cheerleader, gymnastics, you know, very bright. What would prevent someone in her position from just speaking out clearly and loudly to her dad? You know, maybe not the stepmom, but to her dad about, okay, you know, this stepbrother, I don't want to be in a room with him. What would prevent her from potentially doing, and maybe she did, I don't know, but what would prevent her if she didn't?
Well, it sounds like there were fears that she had, that the stepbrother was dangerous, was scary. It sounds like these were conversations that she had with her ex-boyfriend, that she had communicated that the stepbrother had some kind of unhealthy obsession towards her, but she was afraid to say anything because she was afraid that the stepbrother would do something against her that was even worse. So that could potentially be a possibility for why she didn't speak up. And as you already mentioned, Vinnie, it's also possible that she did try to at least just skirt the waters a bit with her father. Maybe she wasn't totally direct, but just kind of started hinting that there was something that she didn't like about her stepbrother. And I could see that it's also possible when you're going through a blended family situation, you're thinking, oh, you're gonna get used to him. Yeah, this is just regular sibling rivalry. You're just trying to settle in. And you can see how maybe in some kind of circumstance, a parent might actually be dismissive of a complaint because they're just thinking, nah, this is just normal growing pains of a blended family. But parents, we need to always listen to our children and our teenagers. We always got to listen to them and just stay open-minded. As inconvenient as that might be for your own life, you gotta listen if they're trying to talk to you. And if it did happen in this case, and I feel really sad that that fell on some type of deaf ears if her father didn't do anything about it.
Yeah. Margaret, we have about 30 seconds left here. If in fact the parents did know that there were issues and she was uncomfortable, is there any legal liability for them in any of this, potentially?
well, I mean, possibly a negligent supervision, but you know, this blended family is definitely going to blow up because if they do arrest the 16-year-old under the Federal Delinquency Act, he can be tried as an adult. So I can't imagine, you know, to me as a mother, I'm a little upset with this mother. Maybe I don't know all the facts, but sometimes you can be blinded by love, and
it's frustrating.
It
we are out
truly
of time.
bothers me that did she listen?
We are out of time.
Yeah.
Dr. Judy Ho, Margaret McLean, thank you both so much. This case is extremely complicated, it's layered, and it begins with Anna's family, her parents, step-parents, siblings, half-siblings, step-siblings. There was absolutely some level of instability in her family life. The question is, did that instability lead to decisions that cost her her life? I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.